Welcome everybody to the Watchers Lounge podcast. Yeah, there we go. I had to adjust my microphone a little bit. It was blasting just a little bit too loud. All right, we are back here Wednesday night, 8 p.m. or so Pacific, specifically at Pacific time. That's right. Bigfoot call or fat girl fart? You make the call. All right, we are live tonight and we are talking about one of the weirdest cases in Bigfoot hoaxing ever. That's right, the bride of Bigfoot, Cherie Darvell. And I got to tell you, this woman really did kind of take the cake. We're going to be talking about that tonight. We've got a Quasi theory from Dean Cooper and the return of one of my favorite Bigfoot campfire stories. That's right, the end of the show tonight. So let's get at it. Who in the hell was Sherry Darvell? And why was she hoaxing? Well, let's see here. It was 1976, the 2nd of February, 2012. This article comes from, posted in the 1970s. Six Rivers National Forest, Eureka, California. Sherry Darvell wanders into a resort lodge, disoriented and carrying a bushel of lilies and twigs. She claimed that 3 days earlier she was abducted by a large hairy ape creature who she believed was of the Bigfoot species. Sherry claimed that she was grabbed by the creature while she was hiking with an expedition that set out to film the evidence of Bigfoot. Around dusk, she became separated from her group. It was at this point that she was captured by the Bigfoot. She was dragged through the woods to the Bigfoot den. Over the next few days, the Bigfoot presented her with berries and dead birds. In addition, the Bigfoot entertained her with small shows of pebbles and rocks. Sherry managed to escape when Bigfoot fell asleep. The Eureka County Sheriff's Office denied the whole story, impossible to believe, and treated it like a hoax. Sherry told her story to the Weekly World News, of course, and she sold it for $250. That's right. Okay, we move over here to the BigfootEncounters.com site. Bigfoot search costs Humboldt County money. That's right. Redding, California, February 8th, 1978, out of the Record Searchlight newspaper. Eureka, California, a Del Norte County Superior Court judge who obviously doesn't believe Bigfoot exists has ruled that the Humboldt County must pay the $11,613 cost of a 1976 shirt for an alleged Bigfoot kidnap victim by the name of Sherry Darvell. Miss Darvell is the girlfriend of Ron Olson, son of Frank Olson of the A&E Film Distributing Company owned by Russell Nyhart, Bishop of the Mormon Church in Salt Lake City, Utah. Nyhart's best friend, Jerry Romney, claimed to be the man in the suit in the Rogers-Patterson film. Strange. Another name I'd never really heard before in the Rogers-Patterson film. According to A&E executive Clyde Rinke, he personally signed the payroll checks for Roger Patterson from October 1st, 1967. Judge Frank Peterson commented in making the ruling that said the search for Bigfoot is at least an exercise in futility. And he said he'd hiked the hills and mountains of Northern California for almost 50 years, and the biggest footprint I ever saw was my brother Bob's. Humboldt County officials sued Shasta County for the cost of the May 22nd to 24 search for Sherry Darvell, 25, of Redding. She reported she had been abducted by a Bigfoot in the Bluff Creek area of Humboldt County. Bigfoot is a legendary, hairy, smelly humanoid monster reported seen in Northern California and the Pacific Northwest. Humboldt County Counsel Raymond Schneider argued before Peterson, that saw the law required Shasta County to reimburse Humboldt County because the case involved search and rescue for a Shasta County resident. Shasta County Counsel Robert Rayberg countered that Miss Darvell's disappearance was at best a real kidnapping, and even the Humboldt County officers' reports indicate they were skeptical about the abduction reports. The girl disappeared while she said she was with a group searching for Bigfoot. She later walked into the nearby Bluff Creek Resort. According to the officer's report, she was remarkably unmussed. Later, her friends Ed Bush and Aidan and Terry Gaston of Redding released a movie through ANN purporting to show a Bigfoot carrying Miss Darvell up a distant mountain slope. Ranke later claimed that the Bigfoot suit was kept in Russell Nyhart's office in Salt Lake City. Judge Peterson ruled that the county is entitled to reimbursement by another county only for the search and rescue operation for lost persons or persons in danger of their lives and not for investigations of crimes. The judge ruled that the term in danger of their lives applied to natural causes such as floods, heavy snows, or other calamities not caused by other human beings. Rayberg said that he was pleased with the judge's decision, but he had sympathized with the dilemmas faced by the Humboldt County officials, ranging from whether to begin the search for Miss Darvell or trying to determine who should pay the costs of the search. Ryberg said that if Humboldt County authorities had been willing to stipulate that Bigfoot is a Shasta County resident, negotiations over the cost might have been possible. There you go, folks. So it's not the person who's lost it's the resident's fault. Bigfoot, I guess, would have had to have resided right there in Shasta County as well. The bride of Bigfoot, Cherie Darvell. She was a member of a film crew searching for the Bigfoot in the woods outside of Eureka, California. Unfortunately for her, she found Bigfoot and he abducted her, or so she claimed. Humboldt County organized a search party to find her, but without success. Total cost for the search, $11,613. Back in 1976, man, that's a lot of cash. It's like $100K. Humboldt County tried to sue Shasta County to make them pay a portion of the cost, but a judge struck their suit, ruling that their search had been an exercise in futility. A few days later, Darvell walked into a nearby resort looking none the worse for wear, despite her experience as Bigfoot's bride. When reporters tried to ask her questions about her ordeal, her only response was to scream. Her fellow filmmakers, Ed Bush and Terry Gadsden, later released a movie of her showing being carried away by the Bigfoot. It crossed the minds of a few people that the abduction had simply been an elaborate publicity stunt. So that goes down to the question, did Bigfoot abduct this lady? I mean, we've heard of abduction stories before. There's the Bossman. Bossman. That's probably not the right last name that I'm looking for, but Bossberg. No, that's where it happened. No, that wasn't where it happened. Anyhow, the guy, they stuck him in his sleeping bag and carted him off to the cave with Bigfoot and his wife and his daughter. He was trying to bow chicka wow up on the girl. Well, apparently Sherry Darvell started something way more interesting than being abducted by Bigfoot. Now, according to the Kook Science page, using Cherie Darvell is an American who was the subject of a search and rescue operation in the Bluff Creek area, Humboldt County, from the 22nd of May, 24th of May, 1976, following her alleged abduction by the Bigfoot. The abduction itself was caught on film by Ed Bush. The footage packaged as a film, along with a book cataloging the claims of Darvell and Bush. Bigfoot abducts woman, Stanford Daily, 169. So yeah, it's kind of, well, I'll tell you what we'll do. Why don't we go ahead and take a short break for a Quasi theory with Dean Cooper, and we'll come back and we'll talk about where this ended up going afterwards. But for now, let's listen to a Quasi theory from a quasi scientist. And now, Quasi theories from a quasi scientist with your host, Dean Cooper.
The gods are blowing bubbles. A few days ago, while waiting for the incipient new year, I took a break from waiting and perused my daily conglomeration of Google News alerts. I have Google watching for news on a variety of things for me. Bigfoot and Sasquatch, of course, alien invasions naturally, weird news, understandably, and science in general for light reading. An article on phys.org caught my attention. It is titled, Our Universe, an Expanding Bubble in an Extra Dimension. I thought, astrophysicists and cosmologists blowing theoretical bubbles, just the thing to fill my idle time with. The article is a gloss of a paper published by 5 researchers in theoretical astrophysics and cosmology at the Institute for Physics and Astronomy at Uppsala University in Sweden. The article is also illustrated with an image created by one of the authors. That image shows a bunch of galaxies floating on the surface of a bubble. The article says that bubble is expanding, and that expansion is proposed to be in an extra dimension, beyond the usual three we have known and come to love. The article throws in a bunch of stuff about how the researchers tie this higher order dimension into general relativity theory, quantum mechanics, string theory. I thought, tie everything together with a string? But then I thought, the universe is a bubble? Where have I heard that before? In Hindu metaphysics, of course, I immediately shot back, ducking at the speed of my thought. This visible, touchable, smellable universe we live in is called the Pinda in Hinduism. It exists is manifested in a higher order dimension, which is called the Anda in Hinduism. Anda means egg. Eggs are bubbles. There's a higher order dimension in which the Anda exists, the Brahmanda, the egg of Brahma, the creator god of the Hindu trinity, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Those three gods are the product of an even higher order reality, which is called a Parabrahmanda, beyond the egg of Brahma. Bubble eggs are no longer involved. The Parabrahmanda is not describable in words, probably not even mathematics, and there are dimensions higher than that. It gets better. There are more than one egg of Brahma. There are an infinite number of them being created, existing, then disappearing, eternally frothy bubbles in the substance of reality. As said in an article about the possibility of multiple universes on earthsky.org, in this picture, our universe is one bubble in a frothy sea of bubble universes. You may read the text of this on my blog at bydean.com. That's BHAIDIN.com.
And there you have it, folks. Bydean.com. So we give us this moment here to say hello to the people hanging out in the live hangouts. Hello, everyone. Starting out this mess tonight. Hello, there's the Reverend Tim McHugh. Hello, Reverend. Hello, sir. I'm glad you're with us. Titan Glass 88. Hello, Titan Glass. Glad you're here as well. The Reverend Dean Cooper is with us. Miss Natalie Smith. I don't know if Wheezy's hanging out with us tonight, but we'll say hi to her as well because she's important. Hello, Mr. Shane Barber. I'm glad you are here with us as well. And moving on down the line, there is the great white fisherman, Aaron Duncan, and I'm sure his wife, Mary, which probably actually caught the fish, is with him as well. Hello there. I'm glad you are with us as well. Big silver, shiny Silvertron. That's right. Moving on down the list here, you see who else is in the house tonight. There's Miss Bella Allegria. She's down. Hey, everybody give her some positive feelings and move them around, a last chemo for her coming up. Let's pray that it's the last one that she ever needs. That is for sure. So glad to hear that you've come to the end of that course and that you are still with us. Hello, Mr. Don Rife. Hello, Mr. Don Rife is with us. I saw the Reverend Rodney Dupree. He's always in the place to be, Yeah, that guy, he's always hanging out in the places to be. That's for sure. Moving on down the list here, we are. Hello, Mr. Donald Fuller. Glad you are with us as well. Obsidian Radio. Yes, that is correct. We are here and doing. Nobody wants to hear. Anyhow, hey, Dixie Q. Glad you are with us as well. Moving on down the list here. I'm getting to the bottom. So if you haven't said hi to me, I don't know hi to say to you. Yes, Albert Osman is the name that I was looking for. Thank you. And you reminded me of exactly where I was wanting to go as we came back in off of the shout outs. Hello there. I saw there's Miss Denise May. Hello, Miss Denise May. I am glad you are with us as well. Say hello to my boy Gwen. Hey, man. Long time no see. Glad you're with us as well. That's right. We will say hello to my son, Sean. Connor's out there somewhere. Someday he'll watch this stuff. He'll come around, I hope. Anyhow, here we are. We are back at it. Sasquatch. Yeah. So I gotta ask, ladies, because really, I don't know that men are the ones responsible for this, but I noticed earlier that the Reverend Tim was looking for information on the Sherry Darvell story tonight, and he wasn't really able to come up with much of a search. But that's because when you type in the Bride of Bigfoot, you get things that are not related to this story, more along the lines of erotica. Yeah, strange topic to be talking about here on the Squatchers Lounge podcast. I know, but yeah, erotica. There are somehow many, and I mean many spun off erotica books about having women specifically, because I haven't seen any but men, women specifically having sex with Sasquatch monsters. And I gotta ask, what the hell? I mean, it's not even a hairy man. It's Bigfoot, smelly, stinky, big ass, big feet, Bigfoot. But apparently, yeah, exactly. I don't know where we're going here, Denise. I got to tell you, I don't know where the Bigfoot erotica come from. I didn't start it. I didn't produce it. I'm not even bringing names of publishers that have it. But I will tell you that when you research stuff for Bigfoot, you have to be careful, especially when it comes to the Bride of Bigfoot or Bigfoot abductions or crazy stuff like this. Now, Albert Osman, he did actually say that they were trying to get him to bone up with the young girl in the Sasquatch cave. Now, that's a weird story, but he wasn't into it, I guess. He got them to eat some tobacco and get real sick and run his ass away. But I digress. So, yeah. I don't want to know the answer, so I'm not going to ask the question. However, no, I'm just not going to ask that question because I don't want to know the answer to any of you. Yeah, no, really, yeah, as a bestiality derivative. Thank you, Natalie. I didn't want to say it, but it's like that thing. It's very strange. If these books had been written about men having sex with Bigfoot and being abducted, men being abducted by Bigfoot females and being used for sex, I don't think they would be portrayed in such a receiving way as the Bigfoot erotica. You look at stuff like Letters from the Big Man. Okay, now a lot of people like Letters from the Big Man. I thought it was a disturbing mix of bestiality and mind speak goofiness myself, but the woman was having a personal relationship with a Bigfoot in ways that they shouldn't, and I just I don't know. I don't know where that comes from that gets mixed with the Bigfoot creature. Is it safe because it's an ape? I mean, we don't see gorilla erotica. I mean, we don't see books about women be abducted by gorillas and being made to do things and such. But yet the Sasquatch creature itself seems to just draw the goofiest and weirdest of people when it comes to topics that derive off of it. Now, I mean, I understand it. Now, we were talking this week, in some of the groups about, Sasquatch mentality and in the Squatchers Lounge group, they had brought up, different types of Sasquatch. And I was like, well, it'd be more like different personalities of Sasquatch. For as many Sasquatch that are out there, and we know this from studying the great apes, orangutans, billy apes, bonobos, chimpanzees, they all have members of their troops that suffer from different mental conditions, just like humans do: depression, anxiety, anger, something wrong with his medulla oblongata. It's a very strange thing when it comes down to it. But Bigfoot would also have those categories as well. So I guess there could be like the nymphomaniac Bigfoot. If you were wondering where I was going with this, Denise, that's where I was going, was the nymphomaniac Bigfoot, because I just wanted to find out whether it would whether it would go over or not. But yeah, I just don't know. I mean, it's very strange to think that that type of mentality would go unnoticed in the woods. You've got you're gonna have serial killer Bigfoot and manic depressive Bigfoot and nobody loves me Bigfoot and Bigfoot that just jump off the cliff because they want to end it all. Um, you know, it's just very very strange that you guys are having a real good time out there in the chat room tonight. Um, it says getting it on with the Bigfoot is the devil. That's right. Mama says getting it on with the Bigfoot. The Bigfoot is the devil. That's right. Now, Bobby, you stay away from that Bigfoot. That Bigfoot gonna cast a spell on you. She an info. That Bigfoot's the devil. But what do you do when you come in contact with a multiple personality, manic depressive, nymphomaniac female Bigfoot? I just don't know. That's just one of those things that I'm not really sure where it all ends up. But the stories just seem to be getting more ludicrous and more ludicrous. Now, Sherry Darvill's not the only one who claims to have been kidnapped by a Bigfoot in modern times. I shit you not. By the way, this show is not for children under the age of 13. It's actually in the description of the show tonight. So if your children are here, turn it off. Hello there, Rob Rubbles. Yeah, nobody wants to talk to me, Bigfoot. That's exactly right, man. There's going to be a bunch of those out there. Nobody loves me, Bigfoot. I don't have any friends, Bigfoot. They're all they're all going to have a touch of that. But when you run into the serial killer, manic depressive, nymphomaniac female Bigfoot, I don't know where we're going. Uh, it's just very strange that all of this stems from it. Anyhow, where I was going, I got distracted. I'm sorry. In modern times, a quote unquote Bigfoot research habituator at that, somebody who claims to have habituated themselves to the Bigfoot to be able to interact with the clan and see them on a regular basis and invited other people out to her ranch to experience this Bigfoot clan, claimed that she somehow got sonically knocked out and then woke up with her girl parts and her legs sore, but had no recollection of what actually happened. And if you don't know who I'm talking about, I am actually talking about, that's right, none other than the cat vet, Dr. Melba Ketchum, the non-DNA scientist who bilked $450,000 out of a man for a bullshit DNA study that never was published by anybody, so they bought their own publishing their own publication so that they could publish. That's right. Dr. Melba Ketchum actually, God, I want to say it was 8 or 9 years ago now, actually claimed that she was pretty sure that a Sasquatch had Hadoukened her, with the big Powerball and knocked her out and came and had his way with her. But apparently that hybridization didn't take. Yeah, because, she's the one that says that Bigfoot are fully 100% human female and some unknown ape. It's very, very strange. Yeah, Bigfoot comes to your door with flowers. Don't open it. That's right, Shane. That's exactly right. It's just, yeah. What would a Bigfoot want with a dude? I guess apparently nothing. And all right, that's where we're gonna wrap it up for this evening. The very strange case of Sherry Darville. And I gotta tell you, it's just one of those times when you just never know where the topic of this is gonna take us. And tonight it took us to serial killer, manic depressed, nymphomaniac, female big feet. Yeah, that's where it took us. Very, very strange. Very, very strange. Sorry. I'm trying to get something queued up here and it's not working out the way I expected it to. There we go. That's what I was looking for. Now, there we go. Okay, so I do have a kind of a longer Bigfoot campfire story for us tonight. Your Hoboman 5. Hello there. If I didn't say your name earlier, which I don't think I did, I certainly did now. And we'll say hello to Rob Rubbles because I'm pretty sure he came in super late as well. And I don't want to miss out on anybody else out there. I know Brown Dwarf will see this late. And Joe Houseman, hey, brother, man. Congratulations on the job, man. I am glad you are happy for a while, man. Do your thing. Okay, and with that, everybody, I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. We will see you next week. Next week should be, let's see, nope, next week will be another live edition of a Bigfoot Hoax. And we will see you guys right here on the Squatchers Lounge podcast. May the Squatch be with you and enjoy this kind of long Bigfoot campfire story. What the? You guys hear that? Holy crap. I'm pretty sure that's a Bigfoot. Let me tell you a story. Welcome to season 2. Welcome to another edition of Bigfoot Campfire Stories for season 2. I was reminded of this story during an episode of the Squatchers Lounge podcast. The tale of poor Junior Spade and his father Bill. While in the wilds of the Mogollon Rim, building a log cabin, several fate-filled events took place. Let's hear their story. It was in the spring of 1976, and my son Junior and I were headed up toward Turkey Springs, Arizona, where I had inherited a small bit of land right adjacent to the Apache Stivgreaves National Forest. Junior had just turned 12 and was already quite the woodsman himself. Being a Boy Scout, sure honed his skills in the wild, while I bet he could do a solo week-long packing trip with very little worry from anyone but me, of course. They've taught him very well. We had decided, since Mom had passed, that we'd take this opportunity for a fresh start and to make a new home. A log cabin life sure sounded like the right kind of life for us. I'd ordered a log cabin kit to be brought on site, and all we were going to have to do was fell the logs on site, put it all together. It should make for an adventure we'll never forget. Just the type of distraction we'd need to heal. I had paid a couple of the locals to clear out a tract of land and stack the trees on one side of the lot for easy pickings, as well as to clear a nice path from the city road out to the building lot, some 3/4 of a mile into the cut. When we arrived, I was pleased to see that the workers had thought much like me and cut a winding path, leaving the best of the trees standing and saving all of the old growth. I couldn't have cut a better path myself. It was nearly perfect. Well, when we arrived at the clear site for the cabin again, the men had a wonderful feeling for the land and only cleared what space was needed to level the earth for the cabin and left all the old growth around the plot. When the forest heals from our little invasion, the scenery should be amazing, as if our little cabin belonged and wanted to be built right where they placed the foundation. Junior and I had packed the van with just about everything we had left and we wanted to keep, including our temporary living quarters, an old canvas cowboy tent. It would keep us dry and warm for the next few months as we get the cabin up and tight from the elements. Junior being 12 would be a big help, but I'd still need more of an adult strength to help out. So I hired a young man named Jake from the nearby town to be my extra back for the time being, and we are awaiting his arrival tomorrow. For now, Junior and I would just keep setting up the cowboy camp and getting settled in for the night. A change of life is what we wanted, and it looks like it's just what we got. Well, that went up without much effort. I was surprised, in fact, I'd figured on hours of wrestling with the stupid thing and finding out the lines were missing. But in fact, 45 minutes later, we were loading in the wood stove and running the chimney out of the top of the tent. It was amazingly simple. No wonder this is how they did it those many years ago. We had emptied the gear from the van into the tent and really began to take shape. A sitting area up front near the stove and a sleeping area in the back with our cots all comfy and ready to be set up. Tomorrow we'll build a latrine and all shall be right with the camp once more. Junior was so tired from the day that he was already falling asleep at the round table, so I helped him off to his bunk and got him off to sleep. It was a bit like not myself, so I knew it wouldn't be long before I too was down for the count. I grabbed my flashlight and went for an after-dark check of the woods to be sure that there were no animals. Just as I stepped out of the tent, I thought I saw a black figure run off into the dark, but it made no sound, so I really couldn't tell what it was. That part of the lot hadn't been plowed, and the land was quite dry at the moment, so it didn't leave any tracks to follow either. But I figured it would take a few nights here before the local wildlife would get used to us and move on to another location. I thought no more on it for the night, and I went back to the tent and closed up and settled in for some well-deserved sleep, as the real work starts tomorrow. It wasn't until very early the next morning that I was awakened by Junior. He said he'd been up to pee and that there was a strange man watching him from the woods. He couldn't see him very good, but his flashlight kept making the eyes shine at him. Well, I grabbed my pistol and flashlight and we went to have a look. As I expected, we found nothing, and we searched for nearly half an hour. We agreed that maybe it was an owl in a tree and that he had just been mistaken. Strange place syndrome must have been what it was, and we went back to sleep. Jake had arrived sometime very early in the morning, as when I got up and started the coffee, I heard him call out to us in the tent, "Good morning. I didn't want to wake you," from a strange voice in camp. Well, I swung open the tent flap and invited Jake on in for a cup of joe to get the day started. I had noticed that when he was entering that he had already brought the outhouse supplies with him from town that I had paid for and ready to be picked up at the supply house. He was so eager to work that he had already unloaded the wood in the exact right place alone before we had awoken, just to put his best foot forward. It seems like he was the man we could learn to trust. For the next couple of weeks, work went on uninterrupted. As we had thought after the first couple of nights, the wilderness and the newness, the weirdness of the new land, had all gone away, and the animals had accepted our intrusion into their forest and stopped wandering near the tent at night, as Jake and I had made some real progress on the cabin. The walls were up, the windows and doors were framed in. We were on the lookout for just the right trees to fell for the roof, and in just a few more weeks, this would all be done. I had Junior do a set of tasks each day, bring clean water from the creek, put lye on the pile in the outhouse, mostly things he could handle on his own, and for the other half of the day, he was free to wander the game trails, locate the location that later would be a treehouse location of his very own. It was fantastic, as each day as the sun would go down, and Junior would return with new information about wild food and new locations he had found and visited. For a little while now, he had been telling us about bear footprints he'd been finding around the area. Jake went on to tell us about the Native Americans in the area that still roam the national forest lands, and they wouldn't be wearing any shoes at this time of year either. Many times the tracks were theirs, but there were other stories told of a Bongyon monster, a Bigfoot, if you will, that wanders the rim territories and does bad things when they cross humans' paths. So to always be vigilant and aware of where you are and how far you had wandered from camp. I chalked it up to old Indian stories to keep the young ones in camp at night and keep people from wandering off from the fires alone. But sometimes I really wondered. It wasn't until about a week later when Junior started talking about something following him home. He could never get a glimpse of what it was, but it always seemed to be there, as he could hear a low whistle from just outside in the woodland. I suggested Junior stay in camp for a few days, as if it were some kind of a big camp or a prowling animal following him, thinking about food. An animal attack would be the last thing anyone would want. Everyone kind of agreed. We all kind of stayed near in camp for the next few days. It was on about day 5 when we noticed the first barefoot tracks in camp. Jake had found where someone had walked right into camp and right up to the tent. The weird part was that there were no tracks leading away. It was as if whoever had gone into the tent had not come out. The fact that these were bare footprints and they were huge kind of got lost for a few moments until Junior bent down and laid his hand next to one, and we all realized that this could have been no man. We searched the tent, of course, and there was nothing. Nothing had been disturbed, and it seemed to have just vanished, at least for the time being. And then the weather had started to turn on us. Being summer now, the rains could actually set in for a day, 2, sometimes 3, until they lift. And had done this to us a couple of times already. Jake had decided to head back into town for a couple of days and check on his place and pick up supplies. When the weather broke, he'd rejoin us back here at camp and get the rest of the roof cut and in place. So it was just me and Junior here now to wait out the weather. We both agreed that we wouldn't go anywhere alone. Since the visitor had come to camp, it was just about dusk when Junior proclaimed that he had to visit Browntown, so off he went out of the tent. The outhouse was just 20 yards from camp, so he didn't feel the need for me to hold his hand this time. So I just left the tent flap open so I could see, and there he went. He sprinted like an Olympian to the outhouse. He was inside before he could even barely get wet. A few minutes had passed, and the outhouse door flew open, and out popped the later Junior, who then promptly closed the door and started his sprint back to the tent. But to my horror, he never made it. I thought it was some kind of a movie playing out in front of my eyes, but a giant hairy creature emerged from the woodline and intercepted Junior not 5 yards from his run to the tent. It picked him up off of his feet, tore off in a flash into the woods. My boy clutched at its iron arms, and all I could hear was Junior screaming off in the distance. It took me a few moments to realize that it was actually me screaming in horror at what I had just seen. I quickly came to my senses, threw on my poncho and grabbed my shotgun, slid on my boots, and ran off in the direction the creature had run. There were deep tracks plowing through the soaked ground, even more heavy now with my boy in its grasp. I could only imagine Junior kicking and clawing and punching the creature in an effort to let him go. It couldn't keep him held for long, or it would end up hurting him, so I knew I had very little time. I followed the tracks as fast as I could, covered twice the ground, twice as fast as I could. There was no way I could give up. I followed the tracks for what seemed like forever, my worst thoughts running through my head, my mind of what could be happening to my son. Then I heard him scream, "Dad, help me!" And I ran in that direction just as fast as I could manage. Finally, as I came to a very small clearing in a very dense part of the woods, there on the ground was Junior, a little worse for wear, but alive. While I ran towards him, I only got a few feet when a very large, hair-covered monster stepped out of the trees between us. It appeared to be a female, as there were breasts present, barren of hair. She had wide hips like a woman of many births had had. 2-inch long hair that got longer to the wrists and ankle covered her body, except for the palms, breast, face, and feet. It was very reddish, dark fur. She was taking possession of my son, and I had no choice but to aim and fire my shotgun to regain control. I blasted the creature at point-blank range, and she charged at me, knocking me to the ground and knocking away my shotgun out of sight and unreachable. She stood over me, bleeding from the chest where the bird shot had busted open the skin very deeply, but not enough to kill her. Junior screamed out again, and she turned to look his way. I pulled out my fixed blade from my sheath, and I stabbed it into her foot, cutting 2 of her smallest toes for her right foot. She screamed out in terror as she reached down and snatched me by the face. The very last thing I remember was seeing her walk over to Junior, stomping on his head with her bloody foot, then picking him up and walking away with him, just as the warm embrace of unconsciousness just washed completely over me. They say it was Jake that found me in the woods the next day. He had found the scene at the camp and followed the tracks, found the trail, and discovered me lying in a pool of my own blood, barely alive. Jake said he couldn't believe that I was still breathing and had survived such an attack, seeing as he found me with my face hanging on the branch just above my body. I guess this wasn't the new start we were looking for. According to the story later told, police and fire rescue, wildlife department, and everyone you could think of searched for poor Junior. His father's injuries were so bad that the man will never again have a normal life. They said that after he had healed, he had went back and finished his cabin in the woods, and still to this day searches the forest for the 3-toed Mongyon monster and his poor missing son, Junior. Thanks for listening. I'm Reverend Jeff, and may the Squatch be with you.